All right, we are back. Episode number 2. I'm so excited, not just to have my co-host, Mr. Porter, here with me as we continue to deep dive into BU, but just to show the consistency from a man who had many years of being inconsistent. This is just my journey, and I'm grateful that Mr. Porter is here with me. He's part of the reason, and we're just going to give you all that we have. We're looking for 10 episodes in a row. So this is episode number 2. So I just want to let Mr. Porter introduce himself. All right, go ahead, sir.
Well, my name is Dennis Porter. I am the founder and Chief Operating Officer of Prodigal Sons and Daughters. I am the founder of Building Black Boys. I'm now happy to be a part of Regeneration One, and now working on some things, very innovative things that we worked on for years, and now have the opportunity to actually produce with Regeneration One.
Oh man, I love it. I love the way it sounds. It sounds like progress. Mm-hmm. It sounds like success. That's what this sounds like. Let me just show you on my shirt. This is Regeneration One, Sober Living Home. And we're also a nonprofit. We talk about giving back to our community. Me specifically has taken away from the community for years. And this is just one way that I want to give back. So Regeneration One is how we're doing this through other resources and programs and stuff like that. So today we're going to continue that conversation we had last week. We recapped, we talked about identity, but today we want to talk about purpose. And if I could just lead out, purpose, today I thought about multi-purpose cleaners, right? It has different components in it that can solve different issues. And I thought about that this morning because we are multi-purpose. As men, as leaders, we're just not good at one thing. God has blessed us with many gifts. And, so identifying our purpose, I would say purposes is what we're doing today. And this is what we're discussing. Regeneration One is one of my purposes. And, with the right team, we're teaching other people to find their purpose in life. So today we're going to jump into that a little more. So, Ms. Porter, would you share a little bit of the book? I forgot what chapter it was, but could you give us a little bit of purpose and how do we get there?
Well, first of all, this is a follow-up, as you're mentioning, from BU, 6 Steps to Creating Your Personal Success Formula. And last week was the first one. I thank you so much for being as generous a man as you are, for taking that which is yours and seeing something in what we're doing, what I have done in the past, and willing to actually couple these two things so that they both can live. And so, in that alone, I just wanted to do a little sidebar and thank you for that.
Of course.
But when I was doing this book, one thing I want to mention is the order in which these things are outlined in the book, the 6 skill sets, is exactly the way I knew or felt that these things had to be explained. Where you have identity first as the keynote thing that you have to know before you can go forward to do anything seriously. Mm-hmm. Really need to know. One analogy I think I gave in the book was you being a Rolls Royce and treating yourself like you're a Toyota.
Yeah.
And not having the owner's manual of who you are. And then if you don't have that manual and you don't read that manual, then you may never know all you're capable of. I think you and I know. We're old enough now to know when our children first got their hands on our cell phone that time, and they started doing things with it that you and I didn't even know the phone could do.
Sir.
So you have to have the manual of what you're trying to do. So identity I saw as first. Second, I saw, well, what would naturally come behind your identity? After you discover who you are, what's next? Well, then clearly, if you discover what you are, then you discover what you can do.
That's good. That's
right?
good.
So that becomes your purpose.
Yeah.
And you also discover you have many purposes. But like we were talking earlier, still in all, to align your life properly, you have to prioritize what's out of your purposes is important, and in what order should they be served. You have to serve them right.
Okay.
And so you definitely have to have that purpose.
Well, that's a good segue into my first question. If you can,
No? Okay.
if you
Cool.
can identify or help explain the difference between divine purpose and human purpose, if you will.
Well, my understanding of it, you always hearing me quote Uncle Yaya, because that's the man who snatched me up like you felt like I did with you and set me straight from that point on. And the difference in the divine and the human side is that we know in the human side we operate in the silo of worrying about first person in the physical sense.
Yes, sir.
Our senses, what we can see, smell, taste, feel, we associate reality with those things. The spiritual world is the complete plan or will of God that is before me and after you, after me.
Yes, sir.
You see? So that spiritual plan is the natural order that everything really best operates on. If you're aligned with that, it is because you have been given the divine instructions, the scriptures, the divine knowledge to tell you where you should be, how you should exist as a human being, how you should look at other human beings, how you should prepare for the future. The real truth about the past. Only the divine can give you the real truth about the past. A lot of people study, they become historians, they become scholars in different fields and so forth and so on. But the question at the end always comes down to what is the origin of your knowledge so that we can verify the purity of it.
That's right. That's right.
And so that's divine knowledge.
Okay.
Divine knowledge is streamlined and it's directly from God so that it sets straight everything that is crooked in the existing society.
So, one of my lessons that I've learned that, all of us, if asked, we want wealth, right? We want to be rich. We want to be financially free. That is the human purpose of most of us. I would say the divine purpose is to have all of that but to do God's will with what he's blessed you with.
Yep.
We see a lot, including I'm as guilty as, self-preservation. I wanted riches because I wanted to live a certain type of life. And I think God sort of held up on the blessings until I got the lessons to know what to do with his blessings. Because a lot of us, sometimes we get money, even in our weekly. That's our weekly return, a tithe and offerings. Because I need to be faithful with my little bit so he can bless me with a lot. And those are tests right there that I see from the divine. How can I bless you with more if you can't even be faithful with the little bit I give you?
Right.
So we have to be cognitive and mindful that, to make sure that our purpose is aligned with him.
Yeah.
And how that happen? How does that happen? It's relationship, right? I get a feeling now if I'm going over too far to the left when the flesh wants to say, hey, you want that.
Right.
I want that. And now I have to counter that and say, not be impulsive and make sure I check my motives behind, when I want something. And it doesn't mean that God doesn't want us to have nice things. But sometimes we do things, as I mentioned before, for validation. right? Sometimes we want things just because we can, you know, and so it's just being aligned with Him to make sure that our intentions are pure.
And that is absolutely right, because we exist on 3 levels. We exist on the physical level. That is a reality.
Sure. Yes.
If it was not for physical attraction, we couldn't still be here.
Yeah.
Right? So this is natural order here, these things. Now, on the conscious level, is to understand that everything has a dual purpose. A dual purpose means fire has a dual purpose.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Water has a dual purpose. I mean, it can clean things,
That's right.
it can do all kinds of things, but it can also drown you.
Yes, it can.
Right?
Yes, it can. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's what we have to remember on every level. On the spiritual level, there are evil spirits just like there are righteous
right.
spirits.
That's right.
And we have to understand on each of these levels, you're being tested constantly. So it is really not easy being a human being in this day and time, because on the physical level, there's temptations all around you. On the conscious level, there's temptations all around you. And of course, on the spiritual level, they exist. So that's what I thought about when you said that.
Okay. Now, you know, I've taken a few different assessments to help me find out what my purpose is. And, you know, at the end, it always pointed to community. It always pointed to helping others. And, you know, that was something that was already in me, but it quantified it by 40, 50 questions that says, okay, here's your results. And what I did, I says, you know what, that's what I'm comfortable with doing, is helping the community. And so it was only natural for me to fulfill that in doing Regeneration One. Right. I mean, it started off years ago by just going into the prisons, you know, just spending my time, giving my time, volunteering, going into the prison once a week and just sharing the message and helping these brothers change their mindset. So, you know, the next step for me was to say, what can I do that will be more effective? And, you know, once again, divine purpose. He did not save me from, you know, all of my experiences for me just to keep this for myself. And I want to share it with my community. So, you know, for me, taking some of those assessments helped me. And one of the other thing that I felt that it was natural for me, right? It was natural. It wasn't forced to want to help people.
Right.
I don't mind giving someone that's in need. I never double back. I never talk about it. I don't want it for praise. It just felt natural for me. And as I think about it, I remember as a youth, man, I wanted to help somebody. And that was something that was stirring in me when I was young. I wanted to bring somebody into my home. And I remember my mother saying, hey, you know, we can help her, but we can't just rush her into our home, you know. And so I, you know, as I reflect that gift, that nature that God that put in me to help people was something that started early on in life.
You know, when it's in your nature, it just feels wrong to go by people that need help. It just feels wrong. Other people can do it, but let me check this out. I got to find out what's going on with this person. You know, but, you know, a couple of things you said that I really needed to have had some way to take a note real quick, because you hit on some very strong points in determining one's purpose in life. As we age, our purposes change a lot of times too. And because experience removes the illusions that you had of reality before you learned.
That's right.
And once you learn, you say, oh, well, let me recalculate that, because that's not even realistic anymore, you see? And as you begin to do that, you realize that you might have even gotten more information about the cause that you were talking about taking on, and you learned that the situation really is not the way you think it is, but that there might be some people or challenges or some obstacles there that you may not be willing to go through. And I say that because of all of the organizations over the years that have consulted with us. And once they get in there and they realize the challenges at different stages of the building of their organizations, if you don't know where you are at that moment and you don't have someone around with experience to tell you, it can be pretty tough time. It's that gray area I was telling you about in the book. So you definitely will run into that. But the most important thing is what you were saying, I believe, is that when you determine what that thing is that you can do with ease, whatever you like, you got to understand what happens when you do something with ease. When there's total love in you doing something, what do you think you exhibit to other people at that moment? That's, if you're happy, then I can't see anybody walking up to you and wanting to fight, because it just doesn't match. You know. Energy. Now, that brings me to the final part of what I picked up out of what you were saying, which is another very good point in giving to other people. You cannot receive your own reward if you don't share it. If you don't share it, you can't get yours. And that works two ways. It works in the natural physical world of people remembering those who look out for them, and people seeing those who look out for others and hearing about those that look out for others. But it also works in the spiritual world, where the energy, the communications you're sending telepathically, the vibrations that you send out there, the same way as we said with your cell phone, it's all signals. There is no wires. And you're doing it without knowing you're actually doing it. But once you find that thing where you connect, what you're actually connecting to is the role God gave you. Wow. If he made you a lover of something, then that was a necessary component. Whatever it is you do well, why is it here?
That's right.
So it's serving some purpose to have you here. Now, if it's serving some purpose to have you here, what is that purpose?
That's right.
What are you supposed to be here? Now, we have to understand, when you're born into a world where a few control the many, the likelihood is you're just replicating things that have been, the few choices that have been handed to you, and you found value in those choices. It does not necessarily mean that if you had the freedom of free thinking and choice and the total variation of what's available in the earth, that you would choose the things that you've chosen now.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, and you know, as we were talking the other day, we were conversing, just talking about blessings, and you know, asking God for certain blessings, financial blessings. But one of the things that you said, and I think you mentioned that Uncle Yahya mentioned to you, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to serve God with your blessings? And see, that's the difference. As you mentioned, as we get older, we start to see the value in money, and the value of giving, and the value of purpose. You know, we see rich people, celebrities, actors, whoever, still not find peace with wealth.
That's true.
Right? And I see, you know, and I definitely look up to those who take their wealth and give it to those who are in need. And I think that's, you know, that is a good quality in those individuals. You know, one of the things that I would like to add to purpose, if you would do it for free, I think that's a qualifier right there.
Oh, it absolutely is.
You know, those who coach children who don't receive anything, that have to deal with, you know, their parents and the anger and all that goes into dealing with that child. They do it for free. Those who volunteer at soup kitchens, they're doing it for free. Us who go into the prison system and volunteer our time, we're doing it for free because we're fulfilling purpose. And I think that's one of the questions that an individual needs to ask himself. Would you do it for free?
If they wouldn't, that's not their purpose. If they won't, why? Because once again, your purpose is driven by your very nature. Your purpose is driven by what you love.
Sure.
So now, how can you ignore what you love? It just feels wrong.
Yeah.
It just feels
Yes,
wrong
Yes, sir.
to not do it. And that is the whole motivation behind people who actually do social service on the grassroots level from their hearts. If it wasn't for these people, there would be no real balance in the universe, because we know we live in the greatest capitalist country in the world, and we know that capital is about dog eat dog.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So now, for anything to exist pure in a state of helping other people in a condition like that is exceptional, especially in the United States of America. If there was some point that you made that really I wish I had held on to it. It was a very good point you were making about the whole idea of what we do, and I almost had it to it. Almost came to me. But let me just say this in regards to purpose, and maybe it'll come back to me. When we talk about the next subject, which is direction, the reason why direction is so key is because purpose alone, as we're mentioning, is not enough.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Because your purpose can get discouraged. If you don't have the mechanism to actually bring it into existence, then you can get discouraged.
Yes,
so that's why when we talk about direction next time, we'll see why that's key.
Yeah.
But without question, any person understanding what their true purpose is, most of the people, like you mentioned, celebrities a few minutes ago, you have to understand those celebrities, they came in with that thought in mind. A lot of them wanted to return to their communities as heroes and start social service programs to help their community and whatnot. But they got into the industry and they had no real control because they were so determined to get out of that condition. They had no foundation, a lot of them.
Yeah.
They didn't come from a strong foundation. So it put them in a very difficult situation. And that's one of the things that, in spite of people asking themselves what their purpose is, once you have made that deal with the devil, now it's hard.
That's right.
For you now to give up all of those things. Plus you use those things he gave you to entice your family members. Now they done got spoiled on the cars and the money and all that stuff. Now you gotta keep your soul. You gotta sell your soul for all of these things. So even though some people will have a purpose in mind, there are things that can come along in your life. A relationship could destroy your purpose. So, these kind of things too, we need to be aware of. The direction also reflects a mentor. Somebody who knows what they're talking about. Would you listen to a man about relationships who hasn't been married?
Of course not.
Who ain't in a relationship right now?
No, of course not. No. Yeah, you hit on something, and I look at from time to time, it is what it is with Cameron and Mace, the rappers, and Mace stepped away because, as you mentioned, because of that world of hip hop and music, there's a lot of distractions and temptations.
Right.
But he walked away from something. He walked away from wealth to live at peace with God.
Yeah.
And so, you can utilize him as an example. His purpose is what he's living right now. And I'm sure he's still getting blessed. I mean, they're open about their big deal, the monetary receiving what they received for that contract, but you can still have that, keep your keep your integrity, and God blesses you with wealth without compromise.
Yeah.
One that I wanted to ask this question, but let me say this. One of the books that I read early on was Purpose Driven Leader by Rick Warren, and it talked about servant leadership. It talked about your purpose and what drives you to do what God has called you to do. So, what was that point for you? When did you find your purpose? And I would say you are a servant leadership. So, where did you find what drives you to your purpose?
Here's why I love this question. I thank you so much for this question, because this answers the question for a lot of little boys and girls, I think. Again, we have purposes our whole lives. We are naturally drawn to what we are. It is society that determines what our values are.
Yeah.
And whether or not what we want at the time that we latch on to something is a part of that blueprint or not will determine whether we get it or not a lot of times, right? So my answer to this is, if you have purposes your whole life, then I can remember purposes I had as a little child. But again now, let's not forget, some of these things, or most of these things, are all the result of influences, right? Even when we decide on a purpose the first time, sometimes it's based on something we saw on TV.
That's
right? Okay, so now if that's the case, then that means you will consistently go through life latching on to new purposes until you find that natural purpose.
That's good.
Now, once you find that one,
that's right,
you'll know it's it,
right.
Because it comes after everything else has failed.
Yeah.
After everything else just didn't quite take you there. That's why I like your point about celebrities having money and rich people and all of that, and them not being happy, because it is true. Because that is not what does it. It's the very coming together of the soul and a goal.
Okay.
Because that's actually what's doing it.
This is why we doing what we do from this platform, podcast. We want to help our community, and this is our purpose. But we need help, right? We see celebrities throw galas. They do fundraising, and they multimillionaires because it takes the help of a community to be effective. Martin didn't march on his own. Malcolm didn't have the revolution on his own. Elijah Muhammad, all of these individuals needed support, right? Yeah. And this is what we need. Now, you can support in many ways. You can support as a mentor. You can support by helping brothers find jobs. You can just support by being part of a community, or you can support monetarily. You may not be able to share your time because you have a family, but we do need, and we're asking for your support. It's not for us. Praise God, I have a business. a for-profit business. And this is how God has given me the means to take care of my family and my needs and my wants. But there's another community out there that doesn't have or hasn't been afforded the same opportunity as I have. So, once again, we're closing out, but we do want to ask you for your support. You can go to the website, www.regeneration-1.org, and there's no donation too small or too big. Our people need it, and we're here for the people. You want to close out, sir?
I just want to say this, too, because I think it's important that people understand that everybody asks for money for their organizations, and whether they are doing good work or it turns out to be something else. The key thing that I want the public to go away from with this interview here is to understand this, and this I know from 37 years of working in nonprofit organizations, that the key to what really makes an organization live when there's no money, when there's no nothing, is the leadership itself. Mr. Eddie Roberts and his wife, Nicole, are the kind of leadership that allows an organization to weather all those kind of storms. And I'm saying this because I want people to understand that when you're donating, you are investing in that leadership.
Sure.
Understand that the leadership on this end is 100% genuine. And I've seen that because I've seen how much they given and how they have received in return for that giving. So I'm just sharing with you that you are giving it to good people.
Appreciate that, sir. All of the kind gestures. All right, so listen, this is episode 2. I am, once again, when you overcome some of those behaviors, you want to just sit back and says, man, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And that's for everybody out here. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. You just got to put the work in. Today, we just made sure that we showed up today. And that's half the battle. Just show up. Mm-hmm. Keep your integrity. Integrity is saying or keeping your word to yourself, mm-hmm. right? And I appreciate you again, Mr. Porter. We look forward to our next sit down, and we just gonna keep coming with y'all, keep coming at y'all until we all get it together. Peace.